So over the month of June, I did an experiment. A social experiment. No, it was actually a personal experiment. You know this thing that you're on right now? You know, the internet? Someone a long time ago decided to connect all of the computers in the world. And I had a thought. Nope, none of that. Well, almost none of that. In all seriousness, I wanted to minimize my internet usage as much as possible for an entire month, which means something a bit different than it does for most people. For those just joining us, I actually have a job on the internet. It's my obligation to make content for the internet, so I couldn't just go cold turkey entirely. At least not without more preparation than I was willing to do. So here's the setup. For the entire month of June, I wanted to use as little internet as possible. Immediately, I would have to upload videos, so YouTube's upload page was available to me, and I could correct details in a video's description. However, I would not be able to see the comments. I didn't want to see the view counts and like ratios as well for the integrity of the experiment, but what can you do? As for the rest of YouTube, I couldn't use it in any regards. I had 2 emails that I could check no more than twice a day, unless it was explicitly related to business, i.e. if I was emailed an edited review, it wouldn't count as a strike against me. I could also use PayPal to pay my editors because I'm obviously not having them wait through my stupid quirks in order to get what they earned. I could also use Patreon because the people there were paying to be in contact with me. Speaking of which, I could also use Discord because 1, it's how my editors and the people I work with stay in contact with me, and once again, with the Patreon Discord, people are paying, and it'd be a really shitty thing to do for me to just disappear for an entire month. I wasn't exactly willing to just leave them in a lurch. I was also able to use both DoorDash and Amazon, but I could not use Amazon as a streaming service. I don't have a car, and I can't drive, and there are some basic supplies that I needed, like food. I could also use Steam games, but I had to use them offline. That seems like a lot of exceptions, but like I said, most of it was because my job was online. The main purpose of this was to minimize things like browsing and social media overall, and just being engaged with the internet as an entity. And I wanted this to last for an entire month. During that time, I had 4 main goals I wanted to accomplish. Number 1, I wanted to make a video entirely without the aid of the internet. That was Lisa the Simpson. To see if I was able to do something without having basically quick notes and synopses at my beck and call. Second thing was to do a creative project, which I did, and we'll probably talk about as time goes on. Third thing was to make a video that potentially could have a backlash effect and resist looking at the comments. That was the unpopular opinion series I posted at the beginning of the month. And the fourth thing was to resist coming back during a big breaking news story. Spoiler alert, I did not succeed all 30 days. And that last one was the reason why. It always seems to be the reason that I don't succeed these things. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time I attempted to do something like this. The first time I did it for a week back in 2020, immediately after my birthday. Sometime after that, I did and succeeded 2 weeks. And then last August, I attempted to go for the gold with a full-on month. Then the Afghanistan withdrawal happened, and I figured that there was some news that'd be wise to catch up on. This time around, I had made it a full 24 days before I heard a big news story that I won't talk about here because it's not really pertinent to this video. And if you're wondering, just because you're not online doesn't mean you could escape some big news stories like that one. I still had access to the traditional news methods, and sometimes something so big happens that even people in physical space talk about it. So in the end, I made it 3.5 weeks almost exactly. Considering the time period we're in now, I don't know if this sounds impressive or pathetic or even interesting. Like if I did something like this in 2013, for example, man gets off the internet for once his life is the most whatever thing you could possibly hear. But here in 2020, especially after the past couple of years when the internet has so broadly defined our lives, I'm not sure at all how it reads. I'm not looking for praise or anything, I just think it's an interesting thing that I did that I want to talk about. And I suppose that leads us to the biggest question about all of this. Why? Why would I do this? And that's a complicated answer. My relationship with the internet over the years has been a complicated one. Let's start with the most obvious. The term internet addiction gets thrown around a lot. Like, in actual psychiatry circles, it's debated as to whether or not it exists at all. But I think that a lot of people here can agree that internet addiction is probably a real thing that does exist. Like, we've all come across someone who was, as the kids say, chronically online. Perhaps that was us ourselves. Way back in the day, I was in a very bad place when it came to the internet. It made me almost uncomfortable to leave my computer for more than a few hours. I would follow news stories and keep looking for more and more messages and such. If they made me feel miserable, it seemed to make me look even more. Doom scrolling, as it's often called. You read something that makes you feel awful, and the only solution to your lizard brain is to apparently keep looking for more information that ends up making you feel even more miserable, and the cycle keeps repeating all day. Browsing in general can be a problem. We've all spent so much time just mindlessly going from one video that we're not going to remember and makes no impact to the next one. Especially since content these days is almost designed to be disposable. You watch a video once, forget it, and you're on to the next one. You were only meant to be browsing for 15 minutes, but you've lost hours completely. Not to mention the anger and the raw emotions that the internet seems to pulsate these days. It's always, there's another battle to fight. Be angry at this thing. Be terrified at that thing. Happy stories don't rise to the top in traditional news or internet social media. And it can be a constant barrage, and it's not long before it affects you mentally. The biggest reason I decided to do this, though, is that I've seen the internet absolutely destroy people. I'm not talking about cancellation in this regard either. I'm talking about people who have gotten attention for doing something that either hurts them or those around them. People debasing themselves or destroying their own body for clicks and views and advertising dollars. I'm not going to go into names, but you've probably heard the stories at this point. At least someone in one of these categories. And there are channels that can do a better job than I on this matter, like June the King or Sunny V2. I've known people who do waste a lot of time trying to appeal to the internet mob and are in a constant trap of their own anger. It's a trap that I myself have been caught in. YouTube is an interesting platform. It gives you just the right tools to see how doomed you are without a single clue as to how to get less doomed. Throughout the events of 2022, I simply decided that I didn't want to be casually miserable anymore. I wanted to be free. Now, on my computer and my hard drives, I have a lot of content stored. I'm a data hoarder. I raided the entire Emu Paradise library before it went up in flames. Because it's my job to review things, I have a ton of movies, shows, and books stored on my computer. Not to mention a pretty decent Steam library that I've acquired over the years. And that doesn't even include the physical things I have. So I wasn't just gonna go stare at a wall for a month. Even then, not everything went according to plan. Some of the music that I had was corrupted, some of my favorite songs ever. And I planned on watching the Hey Arnold Jungle movie again, but the version I had was in Spanish for no apparent reason, and it took me like 5 minutes to realize that because the film takes place in the South American jungle. But there's a funny story about all of that. When I do have access to the internet, despite having more content than literally anyone else in the entirety of history, I often spent my time just chasing random news and buzzes that wouldn't matter in a week, random outrages and stuff, when I have these awesome, amazing games that I have yet to even touch, that will probably affect me in a positive way for the rest of my life. I rarely let it on as many people on Twitter do, but I could still get up in arms about stuff internally. And once again, that's where internet content is these days. We're long past the days when videos are made to be evergreen. Like the top influencers today, while they do put in a lot of effort in their work, they're not really thinking, how is this going to look in 10 years' time, when it started with an ad for a company that's not even going to exist then. The strategy this day and age is to make a video that's for the here and now that will be forgotten as soon as you're done watching it. Over the course of this month, I had experienced more media that's meant to survive than I had for a long, long time. For starters, I had finally had time to watch the director's cut of the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the first time. I rewatched all of Hey Arnold, Class of 3000, and Ed, Edd n Eddy. I had watched scattered episodes of Gumball, Recess, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and The Simpsons. I watched the first season of Welcome to Demon School, and even started on Avatar by the time I gave up. I'd read the first 2 Molly Moon books, and the second one broke my brain so much I couldn't start on the third. I played through Gauntlet Dark Legacy, a lot of RimWorld, a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon, some of Minecraft, and made good headway into Bully, Scholarship Edition. All of this was in the span of 1 month. And if you could tell me that all this could be done within 1 month, while still doing other projects and actually doing my job, I would have looked at you funny. Like I said, this is on top of the review that I made, and the 3 straight days I spent drawing over 30 characters for a creative series. No, I'm not kidding. I also wrote the introductory script, which is a 3-parter, which is something that unfortunately didn't quite pan out and I'm still tinkering with, but I'm not too cut up about it. It was fun, and I can recycle many of these ideas for later usage. Keep in mind, I didn't get anything new in June. No new content whatsoever. This is stuff I had all along. But for the past, I don't know how many years I've had this stuff, I've made the decision, actively or passively, that it was a better use of my time to chase random videos and Reddit posts about current thing. I was one of those people who, when the internet went out, would keep unplugging and plugging in the router again and again for like 20 minutes, even though that clearly wasn't doing anything. And unfortunately, I don't think that I'm the only person in that camp. When's the last time that you willingly heard a new song by a band that you're not familiar with, despite having access to literally every song ever recorded easily and for free with 2 clicks? I felt less stressed. I was a lot happier. And let me be absolutely clear here. When I did this the first time around, for a week, it was absolutely brutal. I kept randomly thinking of the things that I didn't bring along, like one random song I forgot to get, and instead kept myself distracted with mindless busy work. The next time I did this, I was a lot better. That kind of stuff only ended up cropping after the first week had passed. So I thought I had noticed a pattern. This time around, I expected to start getting some sort of itch to see what was going on around day 15. That's when the pattern would hold. But no, I never got that itch again. I never really wanted to go back to the constant buzz of everything, until the cacophony was too loud to ignore. I had also done just about everything I had set out to do during this break, and I really do regret not going the full mile on this one, not going for the full 30 days. And not because I wanted to hit an arbitrary milestone. I wasn't going to earn anything, and I have no proof of what I did. This whole video could be a lie. I mean, it's not, but you'll never truly know either way, and I doubt many people would even believe me. So I've been back for about a week now, and the first time that I did this, it was psychologically tough to go without having constant access to everything all the time. This time, the feeling is like sensory overload. There's just too much of everything all the time, and I've been having a difficult time processing it. I've been back for about a week now, and the day that I'm writing this is the first day that I haven't felt this weird mix of lethargic and wired. It's something that I really have a hard time explaining. I definitely don't feel much better for having come back, that's for sure. At the start of this experiment, I expected coming back to be a relief. You get this month's worth of content all at once. Actually, due to the nature of the modern internet, the content that is actually worth watching a month later, it's more like you've got a day's worth of content. It didn't take me more than 2 days to go through all of the videos that I actually wanted to watch. And catching up on the news taught me literally nothing I didn't already know. I'm sure that as time goes on, I'll get back into a medium as things level out. But I'm not entirely sure that that's actually what I want. 2022 has been a year of self-discovery for me, and I did a lot of that in June. It was a happy month for me, a productive month. It was a real month. One thing that I don't want anything I do to be, anything I create to be, is disposable. I don't like to leave time forgotten and meaningless. And the internet has become especially good at doing just that. Leaving your time forgotten and meaningless. Even worse than that in some regards. You look at these people shouting on Twitter or Reddit or whatever, it's like they're caught in a virus of their own anger or depression, constantly sneezing on everyone to try and get it spread in a disease of human misery. That's the best way I can describe some of these posts. Emotional sneezes, coughs. Just trying to spread around the virus of misery. Now, despite me going on and on, the internet is not entirely a negative entity. It has a world of potential. I owe a lot to the internet, obviously. It gave me a job when it looked like it would be something incredibly difficult for me to do. And back in 2012, I was so shy and socially anxious, I couldn't even walk into a store to buy pretzels. Talking to people on the internet helped me get the confidence to actually talk to real-life people. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes in my social development that I've gotten a lot of flack for, but I think I've come a long way. And it was really only possible with the internet, and the opportunities that didn't exist when I was growing up. Honestly, with what I talk about, I'm more sad as to what the internet has become, with random social media anger and corporate takeover. And what this experiment has forced me to do, most of all, is reflect. Obviously, I can't break away from the internet forever, but I want my relationship with it to be a lot less toxic. There's so much wonderful content out there that's buried under mountains and mountains of disposable shit that clutters up trending pages. There's so much information out there, buried under biased and lying news sources. There's good stuff out there, but sometimes you spend way too much time looking and not finding anything. And there's just a little bit of everything all of the time. After the month challenge, I thought I was going to do something like 100 days eventually. However, I realized that that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not much of a challenge person, and doing 100 days I think would leave me just as conflicted as 30 days, or 24 days, whatever. Maybe I'll make it so I only really explore the internet on weekends, or something arbitrary like that. I just know that in the past month I felt more alive than I have in years, and I know that that's not a coincidence. I want to keep feeling like that, and I hope that I can find a way to do so.